Did Queen Elizabeth I and Robert Dudley really sleep together? Scandal and Red Petticoats. When you think of Elizabeth's love life, you are automatically pointed in the direction of Robert Dudley. The story of Elizabeth and Robert has fascinated people for more than 450 years. They were emotionally dependent on each other, having been close friends since childhood, but were they actually lovers? Over the centuries, myth and fiction have been added layer by layer, and have only obscured the true story. Robert was born in 1532 and Elizabeth in 1533, and they knew each other throughout their childhood. They were both also at risk of losing their heads through Elizabeth's sister's Mary I's reign, and Elizabeth never forgot how Robert befriended her through this traumatic time. Elizabeth was crowned queen in 1558, and it was at this point where Dudley rushed to be by her side. Elizabeth appointed him as her master of horse, responsible for travels of the court and its entertainment. It was soon apparent that this was more than just a childhood friendship reunion, and Robert was certainly pleasing to the eye. He was described as singular, well-featured, almost 6 feet tall, with long, shapely legs. Elizabeth was most certainly attracted to him, and he was to her. They spent day after day together riding horses and dancing. The time they spent together made rumours spiral, and this was not just at court. Old Mother Dowell of Brentwood was jailed for telling neighbours that my Lord Robert hath given her Majesty a red petticoat. In other words, had taken her virginity. But there is no evidence to support that the two were ever physical lovers, and Elizabeth solemnly swore, even up until the day that she died, that although she loved Robert dearly, nothing unseemly had ever passed between them. To make matters worse, everyone knew that Dudley was already married. As a teenager, he'd made a carnal marriage, begun for pleasure, to Amy Robsart, daughter of Norfolk squire. But Amy never appeared at court. It was rumoured that she had a malady in her breast, and that Elizabeth was only waiting for her to die so that she could marry Robert. In September 1560, Amy was found dead with a broken neck. Whether the cause was murder or suicide, accident or disease, they had never been proven. Dudley was almost certainly innocent of anything beyond neglecting her. He was now technically free to marry Elizabeth, but the cloud of suspicion that now hung over him meant that she could never accept him. To do so might have cost her the throne. Yet she would not let him go. "I cannot do without my Lord Robert," she told the French ambassador, "for he is like my little dog." He remained her bonny sweet Robin, constantly needed by her side. She even hatched a scheme to marry him off to Mary Queen of Scots, on condition that the pair lived with her at court. She also mollified him with the gift of Kenilworth Castle in 1563, and with the title Earl of Leicester a year later. In 1565 at Christmas, Dudley proposed to Elizabeth, but she evaded him. This caused Dudley to leave court in a sulk, but Elizabeth had her guard find and bring him back, ordering him to never leave again. But as Elizabeth only ever turned him down, he was now finding comfort in others, and it is believed that in 1573 he secretly married a beautiful widow, Lady Sheffield. Although the pair had a son, the validity of the marriage has never been confirmed. Even though Dudley was now supposedly married, he and Elizabeth continued their meetings, and Elizabeth honoured him with 4 visits to Kenilworth Castle. Dudley spent immense costs on developments of the castle, and this was all done for the sole purpose of entertaining Elizabeth. The most famous of Elizabeth's visits, and her last, was in 1575, where she stayed a total of 19 days. The longest she had ever remained at a courtier's mansion. Dudley built her Leicester's building, a purpose-built lodging, and Elizabeth complained that she could not see the princely show of fireworks that could be seen from 20 miles away in the castle gardens. This then prompted Dudley's gardeners to work all through the night to create a pop-up version underneath her window. During Elizabeth's stay, the final act would have been a marquee urging Elizabeth to marry her host, but this was rained off, and Elizabeth would not wait for the actor, who pursued her with pleas to stay and rode away. The rainstorm essentially extinguished Dudley's last hope, and in 1578 he married the Queen's cousin, Lettice Knollys. Robert had long flirted with her, and now she was possibly pregnant. Amazingly, Elizabeth did not know about his affair with Lady Sheffield, or even his marriage to Lettice. It wasn't until much later that someone breathed a word to the Queen, and she was furious. Elizabeth never spoke to Lettice again, but surprisingly, or not so for that matter, her relationship with Dudley, after a short cooling-off period, continued as if nothing had come between them. Elizabeth and Dudley were now old friends, bound by 40 years of shared experiences and affection, and this is how they remained until 1588, when Dudley's last triumph was managing Elizabeth's famous visit to Tilbury's army camp. It was then less than 2 months until Dudley's passing at Cornbury Park in Oxfordshire, aged around 55. Dudley had become worn out and probably passed away from stomach cancer. Grieving the death of her brother and best friend, Elizabeth then barricaded herself into her chambers. She saw no one. Elizabeth treasured his final, hurried message to her, inscribed in her own hand, his last letter, in a casket by her bedside until the day she died in 1603. Ironically, Elizabeth's favourite would then be passed to another sweet Robin, Dudley's stepson, son to Lettice, Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, but that is a tale for another time. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.